Dear students, welcome to MOOC on Introduction to Sociology 2, and today we are going to do our Module 4. Module 4 is all about interdisciplinary approach in modern sociology. Before we know about our sociology, we need to also know what is modern sociology. By now, you also know that sociology is a social science which studies society, the human beings living in the society, all its components, the relationships, the interactions, and the dynamism. But eventually, sociology in this milieu has also come to a new form which is called modern sociology. So it is very important to know what modern sociology is all about. We can say that Emile Durkheim has been the father of modern sociology, but that is again debatable to some other critics. But then what is modern sociology all about? Modern sociology gives you a very lucid and a very contemporary interpretations of understanding what the society is all about. Here, the agencies are understood in a very rationalized form. Here, the structures in the systems are very compartmentalized. It is rather thought to be in the micro level and in its context of the holistic form. So modern sociology studies these core concepts of society, institutions, religion, family, marriage, politics, and other dynamical relationships that we have in its core concepts, but in a very lucid and rational form. And the most importantly, it studies about the contemporary society. Now, when sociology had first invented in the post-industrial revolution period, that time the context of the society was very, very dissimilar to our current day context of the society. We could never think about certain concepts such as modernism, urbanization, globalization, and the other concepts which has eventually picked up after industrialization has happened. So therefore, when everything is modernizing, when everything is changing in the global agenda, so why not sociology? Sociology has also been gone through these transformations, and therefore we call them as modern sociology. Durkheim has been called to be the father of modern sociology because of his perceptive insights into the society, because we know from our sociological imagination module that when we have a perspective towards something, we tend to make an imagination, we tend to make a judgment, we tend to make an opinion about what is happening around us. Now, when we are doing a study, let's take for his example of his doctoral dissertation, Division of Labor. He had understood division of labor as not only compartmentalized but also specialization of activities. So therefore, this is very subject of modern sociology. When you are doing anything in very depth, when you are doing in a specialized form so that you are an expert in that paradigm, so this domain is a study of modern sociology. Now, speaking about the various theories about modern sociology, is that this is steadily growing and it is also happening in our modern as well as in a postmodern era, because it is evolving from the criticisms of the past classical theories. We know about our classical theoretical schools, we know about our functional theories, and we also see that these theories may not be relevant for our present context always. So to make it relevant right now, these criticism points were thought upon, researched upon, and then modern theories have started evolving. Modern theories are broadly an extension of the classical theories because we can't do away with our roots. We can't do away with what has been already studied from the experiences. We know that theories are a set of experiences and an interpretations that we have to understand a particular phenomena happening, a particular context happening. So we give an interpretation of that phenomena, we give an interpretation of that understanding of that occurrence, of that experience in the context of the perspective and the theories. But These classical theories are just refined. They are just taken out from their rudimentary form and are made to be more relevant in our present day context. And that is all about modern sociology and modern theories, to make it more robust, to make it more dynamic, and to make it more contextual and relevant, so that the essence is maintained in our present day society. And we always know that society is not a stagnant concept. This platform, this domain, this paradigm is always moving. As I'm speaking to you, dear students, this society might be going through a lot of changes. Who knows? So therefore, the modern theories are trying to interpret them in their present day context. Now, what is the relevance of the present day modern sociology? When we think about structuralism, when we think about functional aspects, we say that these bits and pieces of the structural components of the society, they are in harmony and they are in sync with each other, and that is how we try to maintain the balance of society. But is it always in balance? Because of this modernism, because of the dynamism, it is constantly changing. So if the contexts are changing, so it is not necessary that these componental structures of the society are also thought about in their stagnant form. They are also thought about in their modern day context, because the structures needs to be redefined. These structures need to be refined as well. So therefore, the jigsaw puzzle as a whole is changing. Modern day sociology is also speaking about these structural constructs which are changing in their own context eventually. Now, when I'm speaking about so much about modernism, I'm speaking about modernity, I'm speaking about dynamism, we are also hinting at a very, very important aspect, and that is called interdisciplinary. As we know that sociology had been termed as a social science, and as we know that the father of sociology, being Auguste Comte himself, thought that there was no social science which was studying holistically the society as a whole. But also we need to understand that sociology is very much vested upon a person whose top to bottom is also a part of other disciplines. So therefore, in order to make modern sociology very much interdisciplinary, we need to understand what does interdisciplinary approach mean. As we all know that as human beings, we are dependent on each and every person around us. We are always in interaction with them because we are in exchange relationship with them. When we are submitting some part of us to them, we are also inculcating a part of theirs into us. And this is called the interdisciplinary approach. So when we as sociologists, we keep on saying that people have become very individualistic, people have become very narrow-minded, people have become very contextual, we need to understand that everybody is acting as an individual, but you cannot act as an individual if your whole is not there. So a big whole is there, and in that holistic context, you are an individual person. Similarly, sociology also studies itself in an interdisciplinary approach. This is called a cross-traditional boundary. Now, sometimes this interdisciplinary approach doesn't mean that we take the entirety of that particular paradigm. We might take a part of it might be rejected, a part of it might not be required at all. So therefore, interdisciplinary approach means that for me to flourish, whatever I require from my neighboring paradigms, I am picking up from those in order to give me a comprehensive and a complete outlook. In academic settings, interdisciplinary is always applied with taking the teaching pedagogies, teaching the educational approach, taking some materials, taking some methods, taking some settings and taking some context, and we try to amalgamate all of them together. And this is how in academics interdisciplinary approach is working. As you can see this picture, people are holding hands with each other. That doesn't mean that they are not a part of the society. Somebody is extending umbrella, somebody is extending hand, somebody is exchanging relationships, and this is how we maintain a holistic approach. Coming to sociology and how interdisciplinary approach works here, we see that many scholars are drawing techniques which are embarked in the other study materials, or they're embarked or they are very much inherent in the other disciplinary aspects. So therefore, these scholars, they try to take what is most befitting to me. Now, when you are taking something from another aspect, from another discipline, it is very important for you to know whether that is going to be helpful for me or not. Just simply because I want to make it a very interdisciplinary approach, I want to be a very sharing person, a very open-minded person, I simply just can't invite anything and everything. I am only taking that part of my interdisciplinary approach which are contextual, which are relevant, because as I said, it is modern sociology and we have to think about our modern day relevance. Now, in order to satisfy your objective, what you need to do, you need to address the goals of your subject. And for addressing the goals of your subject, it is very, very natural that eventually you come across certain problems while you are mixing, while you're amalgamating, because always amalgamation may not be successful, always they not be fruitful. So what do we do is that in certain aspects we stick to our own subject. We try to retain our own aspects, and we are not that very comfortable to share those aspects of our subject with the others, because otherwise sociology or a social science will lose its own essence. So a part of tradition is always kept inherent and it's always kept in the sublime layers of the subject. But then again, it is very necessary, in order to make it very contextual and relevant, we need to mix with the other subjects. But at the same time, my dear students, we cannot forget that there are various essence, there are various principles, there are some methodologies which your own subject needs to retain, and that cannot be sacrificed at any context. Now, what are the major principles, and how should we do our interdisciplinary? If already there is a limitation, then how should we go to our interdisciplinary approach? The first is eliminating close-mindedness, because if I am going to extend my hand towards another discipline, towards another methodology, to make it more robust, to make it more contemporary, I have to open all my doors and windows of my mind. I mean to speak that you need to open the doors and you need to be welcoming to other subjects, to other aspects. The second is you have to foster the cognitive ability. Every subject is in a learning stage always. Even if you are one of the most oldest subjects like medicine, you can be astronomy, it can be geography, it can be mathematics, it can be history, it can be any other very rooted subject. Then too, every subject is changing. And when I mean change, I mean learning. So you have an ability to learn for your cognitive development. So sociology also needs to be open to a certain extent, so that you have to realize your cognitive abilities and you have to nurture them upon. Applicable to social intolerance. You cannot just be intolerant to each other, because this kind of multidisciplinary subjects needs to be very, very accommodating. There's a support of morality, which we are always speaking about, and definitely the cost factor. So in order to nurture, in order to a very kind of a holistic approach, you need to be having a very open-mindedness of interdisciplinary. Now, we can always call this to be synergy. What is synergy? Synergy is when we are working in sync with each other to amplify your energy. It is called a synergy. That means when we are combining two or more disciplines, and when it is working in combination with each other. It can be an academic discipline, it can be an activity. So when we are imbibing or combining two or more multiple subjects, we are actually working in synergy with each other. Now, from where does sociology draw its energy? The various sources of energy are those subjects, are those disciplines from where actually sociology had evolved earlier, and from where we have been oriented. So when Auguste Comte in the 21st century had formed sociology, it had actually branched out from certain other subjects. Now we need to know what are the branches, because we need to jump on these branches very often to work in synergy. So therefore, synergy means continuous recognition of a common goal, regular communication, consultation with each other, exchange of data, and provisional conclusions between the team members and therefore among the disciplines. And this is how interdisciplinary approach works. Now, why is it relevant for sociology to have an interdisciplinary approach? As I said, that we have picked up our essence from the society, and society cannot be understood individually or as an island, because a person at the same time is in a part of various disciplines. So if you want to study a social human being as a holistic, you need to have a synergy in order to understand all the paradigms and all the aspects of that individual. It is very much relevant to study sociology as an interdisciplinary approach, because it is gaining predominance in other academic circles as well. Now, consequently, the methodologies and the practices that sociology is applying as a social science is going to be very much relevant to the other social sciences as well. Through the interdisciplinary method of learning, the students, the teachers, the researchers, they might be employing a lot of critical thinking. Now, once you start doing a critical thinking, you are actually going beyond the boundaries. Therefore, you are not being able to only confine yourself within a particular context. You are breaking the shackles. Now you are going into another wider world, which is not opinionated, which is not judgmental, and you are studying the individual as a whole, which correctly should be. So in future, it is also opening a possibility that the effectiveness of this synergy is going to be applied not only in social science like sociology, but in all other scientific approaches, because sociology is essentially a scientific approach. So therefore, over the time, this is a very cost-effective way of studying across each other's boundaries, crossing the traditional lines, and not overstepping but amalgamating with each other. Coming to our various subjects with which we are in sync with each other, let's say if we are talking about interdisciplinary, what are the subjects which are triggering in our mind? Obviously, psychology, anthropology, political science, economics, and public administration. Let's pick up psychology. When you are studying a person in problem, you need to know why the person is in problem. Is it just because of the social structure that he is struggling right now? Or maybe some inherent thoughts which are there within him, which are triggering him, which are caused in other persons. So therefore, in order to know a person, what the person is feeling like, what the person does not feel like doing, what are the various thoughts, the various feelings, the various cognitive dimensions that are happening, the various micro feelings that the person is undergoing through, then only will you be able to approach that person. So in order to make sociology a very robust and holistic subject, you definitely need to study psychology, or you need to put a part of psychology into sociology. Otherwise, without the understanding the psyche of a person, you can never do justice to sociology. Coming to anthropology, we have been from our four-legged individuals to our two-legged individuals with two limbs. But then this was not caused in a day. Our anthropology is our structural, cultural constructs which we have changed over the years and years and years. Some are lying in fossils, some are a part of our culture, some are our traditions, and some are very, very much inherent to us. So, how I am behaving myself, how I am conducting myself, it is because of the anthropological structure of my society, of my community, of my culture, of my family, and definitely of me as a whole. So, in order to understand the background of a person, which is very important to know, because to study the present context of modern sociology, you need to shed light into what is the past. And past is the only best answer given by is anthropology. So therefore, sociology has to be interdisciplined with anthropology very much. Coming to political science and economics, these are our social institutions which are a part of our daily life. Like our political approach, how we are defining our political psyche. But my opinion, my rights, my feelings, my thoughts, what are my ideas, what are my equity, where are my equalities, where are my discrimination, where is my state, what is my understanding about the laws and governance. These are all a part of me as a whole. So in order to understand why the person is opinionated that way, or why the judgments of the person is coming in that context, you definitely need to study political science a lot. Coming to economics, every day that we do, starting from waking up in the morning till sleeping, we are so much economically dependent. It can be studied by a micro level, it can be studied in a macro level interpretations, but we are in exchange relationships. So we are in economical relationships with each other as always. Coming to public administration. Now, what is public? Public is everyone which is not me, or maybe everyone including me. So when we are speaking about administration, we are speaking about agencies, we are speaking about the mechanisms, we are speaking about the governance, we are speaking about the various advantages that we are drawing from the society. We are speaking about the various expectations that we are having from the state. So whether I am comfortable or not, whether I'm happy or not, whether I'm satisfied, whether I have a demand, is all because about the public administration that I'm ruling with. Now, this essence of interdisciplinary approach is very much in the feeling that it is a paradigm of my own subject where I'm extending a hand of friendship and I'm also stepping into somebody else's zone. A discipline in a particular area of study, especially a subject of study in a college or a university or an academic discipline where we are merging, when we are applying certain academic disciplines together, when we are imbibing the best befitting to each other. This is the very essence of our sociological study, of our discipline. It draws knowledge from several fields. So if you are only confiscated within your own zone, you can never prosper. You can never multiply and amplify your knowledge. You can never grow. So it is like an exchange relationship, and therefore it's a combination of disciplines, and this is the way that a subject can be best studied with. So what are the practical applications where we can say that interdisciplinary approach has a paradigm? Despite the various advantages of going into a subject or disadvantages, we still feel it's an extremely popular way of studying where every part of our social science or this field is enriching gradually day by day. Researchers are working very much on artificial kind of an intelligence, But in order not to go for artificial intelligence, we can simply take from our friends. And our friends are our psychology, their economics, the political science, public administration, anthropology, and various other social sciences. So from here, when we can draw our own knowledge, where we can grow ourselves, it is better that we stay connected with each other, we stay in sync with each other, we stay in harmony, and with a lot of misunderstanding, with a lot of misconceptions happening within each other. There are so many gray areas which we can't interpret if we are only confessing it within ourselves. And the moment we open our windows and we ask some other social science to enter, we immediately find our answers. So what happens is that the health of the subject as a whole grows because of this complex nature is simplified because we are in interdisciplinary mode. What are the various advantages of having an interdisciplinary approach? It is an addition to our creativity. We might never think about a particular aspect before we touch a particular subject. So the moment we are knowing what the other subject has in store for us, we tend to become creative, and this creativity helps us to grow our own subject. So we are not merely copying them, but we are also becoming very, very creative in our own subjects. Understanding and analyzing tasks is a very, very important advantage because we are trying to analyze what is there in store for us and how my subject is evolving as a whole. So therefore, this analysis and creative thinking comes from them. It helps the student and the discipline as a whole to gain a lot of energy so that we can understand the complex natures. And there are so much of complex natures which not be very much clear to me. But when we are in sync with the other subject, we tend to make it much more flexible. And this helps us to overcome the gaps. So therefore, when a subject is studied in its holistic form, gaps are a detriment to that. It's like an obstacle. So these subjects fill up those gaps. Definitely, interdisciplinary approach has its own share of disadvantages as well. So when we are speaking about the pitfalls, we're speaking about how much essence we are losing when we are trying to imbibe many things. Now, when I started with modern sociology, I did speak about shedding of some traditional aspects. Now, the critics might think that shedding of those might not be advantageous. Therefore, when we're thinking about losing some of our own culture, some of our own value systems, some of our own principles, this is a big disadvantage for people who are taking a lot of things from the other disciplines where the actual essence, the actual aim and objective which sociology wanted to gain, that might be lost to a certain extent. Sometimes restrictions are imposed on interdisciplinary approaches. So sometimes because we have a lot of constraints, so maybe we want to take something, but then again we have limitations of modifying it according to us because those might be not modifiable at all. So therefore, when we are taking that into our own context, when we are not getting a scope of modifying it to take into our own stride, so there is where our restrictions start hitting us back with. Another thing is that when we are speaking about integrating or applying the methodologies, we have to have a very clear understanding that sociological way of application of methodologies is very, very dissimilar to the methodologies and applications of other sciences like the psychology or political science or maybe public administration. So when I am trying to adopt a certain aspect of methodology, it might not fit into my box. If it doesn't fit into my box, my lid will not get covered and I can't keep my box open. So therefore, there are certain subjects or there are certain areas where methodology doesn't help us, and there where our disadvantages start striking us. and it sometimes makes us very narrow when we tend to follow a certain restricted path, that yes, we have to approach this way with the help of others. We are not able to open up our own subject or breathe, and therefore our context becomes very narrow. And this is where a lot of interdisciplinary approaches happening in social sciences has caused problem. Therefore, dear students, what I wanted to speak to you in this module is that sociology is essentially an interdisciplinary subject where we are working very much in sync with the other subjects, with the other social sciences, with the other methodologies, with the other applications, retaining our own value systems, which has its own pros and cons. But then again, this is the one which is giving it a very, very holistic approach.